So tell me about yourself, Daniel.
So I'm a 37-year-old that just came to Christ about 6 years ago, and I actually got scared of church. I got scared of church when I went to your church. uh,
Were you scared of church before you went there?
I was not. I was never. I was never. There was never a compelling message, even though my brother was compelling just on his everyday, I guess his life, once he, when he accepted Christ and he became a Christian, and yeah, it totally changed, and I was like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. But then I went to your church and I was like, whoa, there is definitely a decision that has to be made. You know what I mean?
And who offended you there? Was it Trini?
Trini offended me. Him and Adrian.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to them about this.
Him, Adrian, and this lady named Tori. We don't know who that is. So, yeah, she offended me. No, so yeah, and then I found out that there was a decision to be made. And I became a Christian.
Didn't you go and then didn't go back for a while?
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
Yeah, I didn't like it. I actually didn't come back till about maybe a month later.
You were like upset?
Yeah, I was upset. I don't even know what I was upset about. I do not remember the preaching. I don't remember what anybody told me there. I don't remember. I do remember singing the hymns. And I remember.
But you knew the hymns, didn't you?
I did not know the hymns. I've never sang a hymn.
I thought your mom was like evangelical.
Well, they're Pentecostal.
I know, but they
don't sing from hymn books.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess I'm used to in Mexico. In Mexico, the Pentecostals, everyone sings basically all the same songs. There's so few songs in Spanish.
Yeah, no, they would sing stuff from like he's like really known. He's a Puerto Rican Christian. He sings I can't remember his name now.
Fernando Ortega.
No. That's more like new school. I'm talking about like in the 90s. I can't remember his name. And they listened to him. So they wouldn't really sing from the hymn. So I've never anyways, but I remember like singing the hymns. As I was singing the hymns, I was reading the words and I was like, "What? Like who is this?" Like I never knew who I think we sang Old Rugged Cross.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard the Old Rugged Cross. Like never. Like I know everybody thinks that because you're from Texas, so you got to know all the country songs. I don't listen to country.
Right.
So when I started listening to the words, I was like, "Whoa, this is really interesting."
So you thought we were singing country music?
No. I said country music because almost all country musicians, they actually go and sing hymns.
Right.
Yeah, they go and sing, Christian songs. So when I was reading the words and I was like, man, this is some deep stuff. This is deep. And I think that's probably why I didn't like it. Because I was like, whoa, this is pretty weird.
So then when you came back a month later, then what happened?
I think it was a little more than a month. Like my life changed dramatically in that month. Dramatically.
Like how?
Probably like a divine.
Like for better or for worse?
For better.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you look at it in a worldly material type of thing, then it would be for the worse, right? Because I don't have a place to live no more. I don't have a vehicle. I'm taking the bus. Started taking the bus to church. So
I didn't know you were taking the bus to church.
I took the bus for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I didn't have any of those things. I got a job. So, like, things just changed dramatically.
You didn't have a job before then?
No, well, every once in a while I worked every once in a while. So, it wasn't nothing that I can say I worked and sweat for my money, for a paycheck.
Right.
So,
and then where'd you get a job at?
My first job was at I did collections for
Cons. Oh.
I did collections for cons.
That's a terrible name for a store.
It's a terrible name.
Con.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get conned.
You're a con?
I'm going to go work with the cons.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a con. It's a terrible name. It actually lives up to it, though. That's probably not something that... Anyways, I don't work there, so they can't do anything to me.
Yeah.
But...
They can con you.
Yeah, they can con me, yeah. Into something that's
I got conned today.
yeah. I went in there and I came out with it.
But that's all that I mean. That's all credit places. Anybody that gives you credit, that's what they're selling.
Yeah. Well,
In other words, when Sears was selling, when they started credit, because before they like JCPenney, Sears, they didn't believe the actual Sears, the owners, the founders, they didn't want credit. They didn't believe in it. And so there was like no, but then, they passed or they got sold or whatever, changed hands and someone else was leading and they started credit, their own little credit card, what's called the cards, what do you call them? The department store cards. They're the ones that they started with that and they made more money off the interest of their department store cards than they did selling their stuff. It's like a pawn shop.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So, they're all like this.
Well,
they get you to,
That's why they offer that $50.
you need to turn that gain up or we need to get you a better mic.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, yeah. You got to get right up in there.
Yeah. So
You got to eat it.
that's why they
There you go.
they offer that $50.
Yeah, to sign up.
Yeah, that sign up, you get $50 off what you buy that day. And
Oh,
look
yeah.
that up. Oh, $50 now.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah, it's hilarious. They dropped their credit score like 50 points for those $50 just by signing up.
It's all worth it. It's worth it. You're getting something free now.
yeah,
It's worth it.
exactly. That's how they all work. I mean, so yeah, there's not just that store. They're all conning people.
But I thought that, well, things that I've heard was that they sold more quality stuff. Like, so there was a little bit
Who did?
Sears, Dillard's, JCPenney's.
Well, that may be, but Con was not real high quality
no,
stuff.
not at all. I mean,
But they sold it cheaper though, didn't they?
Possible? No. So the people, first of all, the people that they're lending to is, people that you
Can't get credit anywhere
can't
else.
get credit, and you wouldn't lend anything to them,
Right.
right? And then that's exactly.
Well, that's why you have to have high interest rates.
high interest rate. Yeah, exactly. So
And
the
that's why they
things-
got you to kneecap people because they don't pay.
It's pretty much. It was like
You're
real brutal collections.
Yeah, you're
real
verbally kneecapping people.
brutal. Yeah, yeah.
But isn't it where they don't have to actually pay anything?
I mean, no, you don't have to.
Will they go and
No. So there's a
take away?
yeah. There's a dirty little secret that you can't go and collect your stuff.
What do you mean?
You can't go and repo.
Yeah,
anything.
cons can't repo.
You can't repo furniture.
No.
Yeah, it's like. So that's why you said that they charge so much
Right.
interest rate.
I mean, I understand. I don't like credit, right?
Right.
Period. But if you're going to have credit, that's just the way it's going to be. Places that are willing to take that huge risk are going to charge more. And so the few people that actually do pay are paying for everybody.
Yeah.
Anyways, you went and worked at cons and then.
Yeah, I worked at cons, and that was just. I mean, it was really interesting. I was, which was something that you hate the most. The thing that I was supposed to, well, I would work, but I would also proselytize. So anytime, you're on the phones. So I guess I moved up in the collections part. Like, I guess 3 months. I was working really good. I hit my goals and everything. So they moved me into a later bucket. Those buckets are
Turn your gain down. You're like heavy breathing into here.
I thought it was me, and I'm like, I even stopped there for a moment.
We're all holding our breath trying to figure out who it
Who
is.
is that? It's a little fly in the room.
It's all the way down.
Is it?
That's why I didn't want that close.
Or you just, you lean into it or something when you're going to talk, and then lean back when you're going to breathe.
Yeah.
It's like living with Darth Vader.
Well, the problem is that I get sent to Austin, where it's hell for people who have allergies.
Really?
Yeah, I was.
Oh,
working,
he was
my
terrible.
Eyes were like
And-
close to shut.
Yeah,
I
and his
couldn't
nose
see
is
out of 'em.
bleeding.
Well, you know the
And I
remedy
just
for
see-
that.
And then
right?
it's on COVID, so
That's what I was gonna say. You know the remedy for that is just put your mask. You'll be okay.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was one of the
we're up
worst
there and he's
days.
walking around. He's got all this snot and blood and everything, and it's everyone's looking at him all scared.
Yeah,
He's got the virus.
They're waiting for him to collapse.
Yeah. They're like trying to call the 911.
yeah, my neck is killing me from sneezing. It was
Man, that's terrible.
Anyways, you were
That is
saying.
terrible. So I moved into later.
No, you were saying about your proselytizing during work
Yeah.
hours
So
to the
what,
people that you're collecting from.
no.
So you kneecap them, and then what? Then you like.
And Jesus loves you. He wants you to go through this experience so you don't live in credit. And that's why I'm here.
Well, but did you get out of credit when you were? Did you get out of debt when
I
you
was
were
never
working there?
I never really had credit. I never
Okay, well then, did you kind of see Did you always know there was a
Well-
problem with it, or?
well, I guess I should say I never bought a vehicle in cash. So I guess I was okay with credit.
That's funny how people do that. I don't have any debt.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So that car's paid off? Oh
No.
no, that's not paid
But
off.
that's just okay. It's a lease.
That's an investment.
it's an investment.
That's an investment. That's not credit. That's I'm
Exactly.
investing.
And it'll last me to the Lord.
I'm
comes and
investing in
takes
my
me.
past.
Yeah, my bad.
That's why when you invest in a car, you're investing in your past, not in your future.
No, not at all. And what did you say? You'll invest
It'll
in?
last till the Lord takes me.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Christians say. They buy something they know they shouldn't have bought, or maybe they should have bought, but they feel bad about it, and they'll say something like, "Well, this is going to last me until the Lord comes."
Because he's coming. It's coming.
like-
He's right around the corner.
It's like real dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what was that question? That if I was okay?
Yeah.
Well, you were
if
who are you proselytizing
To
to?
my coworkers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to my coworkers. So,
So
I
that's
was
to
gonna
your
say that I
fellow
was-
kneecappers.
Yeah, my fellow kneecappers, my fellow mafia.
Kneecappers for Jesus.
Well, I was, not them.
So you weren't even a good one.
Yeah, I was a good one.
Well, a good
Good at proselytizing.
proselytizing,
Yeah, you weren't
yeah.
good at
No.
kneecapping for Jesus.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, I was saying that I was moved to a different bucket. So they start you off with buckets, right? So one of them is like 10 days late, right? So then you call. Those are really easy. When they're 10 days late, most people are gonna pay. They just forgot, which is kind of terrible because if you forget in those 10 days, they can actually go and charge you all the interest rate.
Yes,
up
all
front.
your deferred
All-
interest.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, that's what people don't realize
They
about
don't.
that when you get this zero interest for 24 months, it's not zero interest,
No.
it's deferred interest.
Deferred.
Yeah. And if you mess up in any way at all, they tack it all on.
And it's not in fine print. When you go
No.
over, I mean, everybody says that, oh, it's in the fine print and it's like super tiny and you'll never, no. it's
No,
actually-
the contracts actually don't have fine print.
No, there's no fine print.
No.
And as a matter of fact, they actually have to tell you up front, like, this is, if you do miss this thing, then we're
Yes.
going to attack this all.
Yeah.
So anyways.
No, but they don't. They could. It's like the smoking thing. They can put on the cigarettes. They put on there. This will kill you. They actually put it on in Mexico now. They put the poison symbol on the cigarette packs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they put the skull and crossbones. This is going to kill you. You will die if you use this. And they have it on. It doesn't make any difference.
Do they do that with beer?
No, that's
Right.
that's medicinal.
It's medicinal.
What kills more?
I don't know, but that's what they do. It's crazy. My point is just like
Well, over here, I think it just says the Surgeon General. There's a.
Yeah, they have the Surgeon General's warning. They're
Yeah.
more brutal in Mexico, but it doesn't matter. That's what the cigarette companies found out. It didn't make any difference.
Does not make any difference.
They should have been doing that from the beginning. They wouldn't have paid all those lawsuits out.
Yeah.
Because it won't make any difference. People are going to do it anyways. They don't care if it kills them
It doesn't.
until it's
They
killing them.
Yeah.
As soon as it's killing them, then they're whining about it, saying how I wish someone would have told me.
Yeah, while they're smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that
Out
guy
of-
at the
yes.
like that guy over there at the VA who was smoking right out of his throat.
Oh yeah, you see that all the time in Mexico. It's-
Yeah, that is just crazy.
Yeah, well, by then, why not? It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
now it's like somewhere to hold your cigarette while you're working. You stick it in that hole and then you can go to
Oh
work.
no, that's terrible. But whatever, that works. Yeah, so I was proselytizing to my coworkers. So when you're on the phones, you don't get a phone call sometimes. It just depends what time of the day is. You work in shifts, so later on in the evenings, there's not a lot of calls coming through. So you have like 5, 10, 15, 2 minutes. It just depends. So in that time, people were sitting next to me. I'm reading the Bible and it's telling me that I should be telling people about this. So it's like, hey. So I start talking to them. I don't know what I was saying. I'm like thinking in my head, like later on, I'm like, man, I should have been prepared to tell them a little, something better. There's that saying that I was a bull in the
In the china closet.
exactly.
I don't think it means that.
I don't think it means that night. Well, yeah, I know what you're gonna go with. Yeah.
Where? I'm just saying.
I know where you're going with this.
Where am I going?
That anyways, so I was breaking things. No. Anyways, I was just trying to tell them that
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's just not what that saying means. But that's okay.
What does it saying mean?
A bull in the china closet?
It's
Well, that
China
means
shop.
Chinese shop. Yeah.
China shop.
China shop. It's a bull in the
What?
China shop.
There's a China closet? Or is
Yeah.
it China shop?
no closet.
Okay, I've heard the one in the China
Alright.
shop.
It's the same saying, but the idea is that you run roughshod. It's not that you're unprepared or you
Right,
don't know what you're
roughshod.
doing, but that it's like Trump is. We would call maybe Trump that.
Yes.
In the way he just comes into a delicate situation and handles it very
Yes.
brutally,
Yes.
but not necessarily ineptly or without ability or without knowledge. Where you're saying more that you didn't know what you were saying and you
Well-
were just trying to talk to people about what you thought, but you weren't really prepared at the time.
I guess yeah.
So it's not. That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
not
it's
really what
not.
that means.
Yeah, I guess it's not. Thank you.
That's more the saying that would be more apt probably would be Jesus's that it was the blind leading the blind.
No.
No.
No. No. I had to think that. I'm like, no. No. So these people didn't, they weren't trying to hear me. Like, not at all. They weren't trying to hear me at all.
Right.
Not at all. But I got to meet other people that, they had different beliefs. There was a lot of Jehovah's Witness there. So I would talk to them a lot, and I was able to debate them, I guess, in the sense, like, they would tell me that, no, Jesus Christ is, well, the doctrine
Yeah.
that they believe. And I'm like, no, it says hear this, and it says hear that, and this and that, and they're like, no. So I got to talk with them a lot, them and Muslims.
How'd it
That
go
was
with
pretty-
Muslims?
Didn't go well.
But you didn't really know what to tell them.
I didn't
did
know
you?
what to tell them.
So what would you tell them then?
I would just tell them that, okay, so I remember like reading, I think it's in the book of Matthew. Is it the book of Matthew? When Jesus tells the Pharisees that there standeth a prophet, but I'm telling you, I'm more than a prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he say that? So I would tell him, like, he's not just a prophet.
No, it's good.
Yeah, and they're like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, no, he says that he is the son of God. He says that he is God. And you guys are saying that he's just a prophet. And that's not right. And then they would come up with the same things like, oh, well, how can you have three gods?
Right.
Just the same arguments that I hear now.
Yeah, with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, with the Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean,
Yeah.
they attack it kind of like they would be attacking a Latter-day Saints,
Right.
right? But we don't think that. There's no three gods.
Right.
So, anyways, yeah, those type of things. It didn't go very well. It didn't.
And were you saved at this time?
I was saved.
So when did you get saved?
I got saved
Because you went to church, you weren't saved then,
No,
right?
I was not saved.
And then you went back a month later. Were you already saved
was
then?
saved then.
How did you get saved?
So when that whole thing happened with my whole life flipping upside down, Marcos and I, my brother, we went out bicycle riding, and we came back home, and I was just thinking in my head like, I don't have anything, and I'm thinking in my head like, well, he's been telling me that like there is forgiveness, there is a peace that you could have, and I was thinking the whole way home. After bike riding, I was thinking the whole way home that I need to do something. That my life just can't be this. And I always use the metaphor. Maybe it's not a metaphor, but I like certain movies, like The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a part when have you watched The Matrix?
Yeah.
So do you remember when Neo goes into the car? Not Neo, it's actually Anderson, right?
Okay.
He goes into the car, and then he wants to get out because he doesn't want to keep on going with Trinity and them to take him out of the Matrix. And he opens the door, and she tells him, like, you've already been down that road. You already know where it goes. And that's all I could be. I was just thinking that, like, I've already.
So the
been.
Matrix saved you?
The Matrix saved me. No, but I'm giving that. I'm trying to.
Okay, I thought you were saying that you watched that and that
No,
like led you to Christ.
No, I just kept thinking that I've already been down this road in my life. I've already been down this road. What am I going to continue doing? Like, really, what am I going to continue doing? Do I keep on and just mess it all up because I'm pretty good at that?
Right.
And I'm like, or I make a decision that I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, and that he does miracles. And I told my brother, I go, yeah, you know what? I need to get saved. I want to get saved. So then we got home, and he's like, hey, can you give me a couple of minutes? And I'm like, yeah. Well, what do you mean? Like, he's like, yeah, give me a couple of minutes. So he started writing down some stuff. I don't know what he was doing. I was on my phone at that time. You know, I can't remember what I was doing, but he was writing down some stuff. And yeah, now that I think of it, now that I actually have the paper and I went back not too long ago, he was going down Romans Road.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like telling me, hey, you know this? Yeah, I know that. That's me. Yeah, you know this? You know this? Hey, well, there's mercy in this. There's grace in this. And, he started telling me about Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard all this. I already know all this. And like right then and there, it was like a light bulb. Like, yeah, I know this.
So
And
how did you know that?
like, I don't know. It was just
Well,
like
you had to.
a revelation right then and there. Yeah, it was revelation,
No.
Michael. You don't know.
No,
You've never been there.
I've never been there. How did you know that?
Well,
do you
it
think
was-
it's from your mom's influence?
What do you mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, how did you know that? You had to have heard it somewhere.
Well, yes, I know this because he's been because Marcos has been.
Okay, he had been telling it to
Yeah,
you
he's been
before, but
telling
it
me
didn't
for a
make
whole
sense
year.
at the time. Or you
No,
didn't really listen to it.
I never really listened to
So
it.
at this point, it all started to make
It
sense.
made
then.
sense. I'm like, oh no, not the whole thing with my mother. Like, no, I don't think that was like. I remember now her, her being different,
Right.
but and her trying to teach us something, but it wasn't long enough. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, it made sense like right then, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I understand the gospel. I guess if you want to call it that. At that moment, I was like, oh yeah, this is a revelation. You don't like that word?
No, it's fine. But it just sounded like you were saying that you had already heard it in your mind, like through revelation.
No.
And that I don't believe that's the case of anybody. I think that we may not remember where we heard it, but we're the product of our upbringing. We're the product of our circumstance in many ways,
Okay.
especially anything that pertains to actual knowledge, right? There's genetics about things where you could be genetically gifted for something, eating in case of some people.
No pun intended anywhere.
But anything that's knowledge based, you have to learn it from somewhere.
I see.
And sometimes we don't know where we learn things from. Like, you say, well, and I don't know this case, in your case specifically, but you might say, well, I didn't really pay attention to my mom, or she didn't really teach me any of this. But if she ever said any of this, then that's in there. That's
Right.
in there like everything else that we learned throughout our life. It's there. It's the tapestry of our mindset, of our perspective,
Okay.
right? And even if we never actually notice the shapes in the tapestry, whatever the print is on it, it's there. It's like wallpaper in our mind, and at some point, given the right combination of circumstances and influences and stuff, then it'll all come together. And I've talked to a lot of people who will say, yeah, once I heard the gospel from whoever, from the preaching or from the meeting or from my uncle or from my brother or whoever, I heard the gospel and it all made sense. And then I started remembering, and it's like, oh, this is the same stuff that I used to hear at Vacation Bible School when I was like 8. Now I remember this. I remember the teachers saying this in Vacation Bible School. And that's why, people need to realize that, like with you're saying you're talking to people at work about the gospel, they're not believing. And sometimes we get discouraged. We're like, oh, no one wants to believe. But we just don't know how the mind is just is a crazy, complicated machine, if you will. And you just don't know how long these things will stew in there and what it takes at times for the brain to make the neurological connections for that information to be able to be processed and to be useful at some point. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to tell people the information, and it gets stored in there, and it's not necessarily orderly. The brain doesn't store stuff like in a filing cabinet in alphabetical order. It stuffs stuff all over. It's kind of like the way Marco organizes things and sorts things. He just finds a little space where that fits, and they stuff it in there. And that's why people have these memories that are like all jumbled up, and they're all in all different orders.
Yeah,
And
I think that's exactly how his mind actually works too.
yeah, he actually
It has to
he
do. Yeah,
he
'cause
actually
slips in. Yeah,
he actually acts out his mindset.
yeah, it's crazy. If we're on two different separate jobs, but if we do one thing exactly the same, he connects those as the same job, even though they're completely different jobs. He goes, but that was that job. He'll call me, no, Marco, those are two different wrong job. No, but we did that. I'm like, yeah, but that was like 2 weeks ago, at a different job. It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
But anyways, yeah,
So
I mean,
you're saying like it's like, so it's like planting seeds in.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you have no idea, how long it might be and what it might take for that to take root, for that to manifest itself and become useful. And often it's not enough that you've said it. Like it's not like they're going to have an epiphany, is what I'm saying. It's not like they're going to have an epiphany a long time later. Someone else is going to come along and they're going to tack on. They're going to add to that information, and it's going to get connected. And then someone else will, and someone else will. And we don't even realize how many people contributed. And it can even be things that aren't even biblical or scriptural, like, for instance, The Matrix. I mean, you're not the first person who's told me, yeah, I was watching a movie, and science fiction movie, or maybe it was a Western, or maybe it was a biblical movie, like my wife, Terry. It wasn't for her conversion, but she, when she was young, she wasn't necessarily living the way she wanted to live. It wasn't terrible, but she wasn't living, the life she really wanted to live, but it was a worldly life. And she saw the movie, The 10 Commandments, and it just broke her. And then she was like, I need to live my life for Christ. And you can look at that and go, well, that can't be, because there's nothing in that movie is like not hardly even biblical. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of it is dramatized way out of proportion because it's a movie. And some people say, so there's no, how can anything come of that? But what I think it is, and I'm not a neurologist, but what I think it is
You're not?
that no, I'm practically a surgeon, but
That's
not a
right, yeah.
neurosurgeon.
Yeah, that's right.
No, what I think it is that people, you have in your mind, you have. Sorry,
We need to get those clips, huh?
I have them. I don't like them. I think I like my other headphones better. I'll get them from tomorrow.
It's because you're moving around.
Yeah, the other one doesn't have this. You can replace the cord with one that doesn't have they have
Telephone
different
cord.
cords that came with. Those are real nice. Where are those at? Right there.
Those are
real
the
nice.
Bluetooth ones?
They also have a Bluetooth module that clicks on it. Goes in where this cord goes. Take out the cord and you click the Bluetooth module in there, and then it's Bluetooth.
That's cool.
Or you can put a long cord or a short cord or a telephone cable cord. Anyways, yeah, what it is when people watch something like that, like a movie like that, well, then then information they have received over their life. Like my wife went to church from the time she was like 13 is when her parents got saved. And she went to church 3 times a week for, 5 or 6 years and to that point. And so then all that information comes together and something triggers that in your mind. It could be anything. It could be a smell. I mean, there's a lot of things that can trigger things in your mind. And the gospel is just information.
Mm-hmm.
As much as some Christians want to make it very mystical, the gospel is just information. And it's like any other information. And it can be triggered and connected, right? And so, you can hear something, see something, smell something, learn something, and it will connect information that has been kind of floating around or, stashed away in places in your mind that you haven't connected before. And your brain will take that and like connect those dots together. And that's when we say we have these epiphanies. There's where we have everything makes sense. All of it, like you said, a light bulb turns on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what that is. That's just a lot of information that you've gotten over a long period of time. Some of it accurate, some of it may be even inaccurate, but it all gets connected together. And you can have a lot of inaccurate information in the gospel in your mind, in your mind's gospel, right? Because there's a gospel that's the actual gospel, that's
Okay.
right, that's the pure gospel. It's if you were to ask Jesus Christ, what is the gospel? Well, you're going to get the absolute pure gospel. There won't be any inaccuracy in that gospel. And then you're going to get the gospel that's coming from someone who's talking to you, like maybe the gospel you were giving people back then, which has large elements of truth and probably quite a bit of inaccuracy, right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to get the gospel that lives in everybody's mind, which is going to be some mashup, some what would you call it? Some mixture of some proportions of what's true, accurate, real, needful, and what is inaccurate or unnecessary. And you're going to have that. And depending on what those proportions are and where they lie and what points they're in, will be whether or not that's sufficient for them to understand the gospel to be saved.
So are you saying that there's like some bias in sharing the gospel?
Well, we all have a bias. Anyone who tells you that they give the gospel 100% accurate the way Jesus would, I mean, which Christian is going to make that claim? To make the claim that the gospel I would present to you, if you said right now, explain the gospel to me, that the gospel I explained to you, that I would affirm that is exactly the gospel Jesus would tell you if he were here in person. See, I don't think anybody would be so bold as to say that. I think we'd all have to realize that if he were here and we were like given the gospel, we would be like cringing, right? That he's going to go,
Yeah. Yeah. Shut up.
and you're like, ooh, oops,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, we don't find Jesus Christ second guessing anybody who's doing that really. And it's because I think the gospel is incredibly robust. It's an incredibly robust, almost, what's the word you would use? Redundant message. There's a lot of redundancy in the gospel. And I think one of the errors that we make as neo-evangelicals is we try to cut out the redundancies. We try to delete those, and we try to make it more efficient. And so we try to formalize the gospel and get it down to some formulaic points that do not overlap. So we want very distinct components to the gospel. We want repentance to be very distinct from let's say, reconciliation or from atonement or whatever. And so if you ever look at any type of systematic theology, they're going to take and they're going to define these points where there's no overlap between them. One handshakes with the other, and they pass on, but there's no overlap between them. There's no redundancy. There's no robustness to it. It's all, so when you lose any one of the points, it's like you've broken the chain. It's how this formulaic type gospel works.
So we're trying to perfect it. We're trying to in our own brain
We're trying
make it
to streamline it. Because that's how we like to see things. We want our minds are a machine that preference and prefer efficiency in everything.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And we want that also in our gospel message. We want a gospel message that is very efficient and very streamlined. And it's not because we're consciously saying, I want to pare it down. I want to trim it down to a very defined shape. That's not it. It's not conscious necessarily. It's just how we think all the time. Right? All the time. If we're going to write something, we want it to cut out all the repetition, all the redundancy. We don't want to hear it. If we see something, it starts repeating itself and it's redundant. It's not interesting. And I think we tend to have this view of the gospel, where I see the gospel in the Bible is extremely redundant and very robust. It's not made to be efficient or streamlined. It's made to be very redundant. And the reason for that is because it safeguards it against a great deal of error. And so because of the incredible redundancy of the gospel message, then somebody can have a very mixed bag of it, with a lot of mixture of accuracy and inaccuracy, and yet still have enough truth in that incredible mixture that they can still get saved that way. And so you'll find people who have you examine the gospel that you say, tell me how you understand, and what they tell you, it's like, I don't even know if you could be saved that way, and yet they got saved.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Martin Luther.
Mm-hmm.
You examine and you read what Martin Luther understood and where he was when he got saved, and you wouldn't think anyone can get saved like that. He was barely removed from Catholicism, if at all. He certainly wasn't removed from it in his own mind.
No.
He didn't get saved out of Catholicism. He thought he was going to reform Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
He just got saved towards justification by faith. That's what he understood. There's a lot of things he didn't understand, that if we were to meet him, we would be arguing with him and trying to get him saved. But that's what I'm saying. The gospel is an incredibly robust message if it's left alone.
Okay. Yeah.
But we tend to want to streamline it and formulate. And that's my problem with any type of formulaic type preaching. And that's why I've steered away from that myself. I don't think it's helpful. I think it's actually part of the problem in how in what we see as being the kind of the weakness and downfall of the gospel outreach in the world.
What do you mean? Like,
well, as we look back at times when people there seemed to be tremendous revival in the sense of people really getting saved, and a lot of them, and it doesn't seem to be that case anymore as much. And I think one of the things you notice is that starting maybe around with Charles Finney, the gospel became more and more formulaic, and we started applying communication technology to the gospel message. Because as the mediums became developed, radio, television, these things, the way we communicated changed dramatically. Radio changed the way we communicate dramatically. Television even more. Mm-hmm. Television was an enormous change, and now social media is even a bigger change to how we communicate as human beings, not just on the medium itself. Now, television changed the way people see themselves, even if they've never been and never will be on TV. So when you look at pictures of people who lived before TV, they always look weird. They're weird-looking people because photography was just getting started, and they didn't really think of themselves as in, how do I look? They didn't think of themselves that way because you never really saw yourself, and you never really, anything people saw couldn't be kept, right? Or it was only within your small, and so you tend to have in your mind the image of yourself as you see yourself, and that was good enough. And you never really thought about how weird you might look until TV comes out, and then we all become very conscious about how people look. Mm-hmm. That's why they say that FDR never would get elected in a television era, because nobody wants the look of a president in a wheelchair. Right. It would be very difficult. Now, we may move past that because things are changing, and the communications of TV is going away in many ways. And we're actually coming more into audio again, which is incredibly interesting. But radio changed the way people communicate with each other, because all of a sudden you could communicate with people that you never will meet, right? And it will be sent all over the world where that was never possible. I mean, you had to shout, and you shout as loud as you could, and that was what you could do. And so you could reach, maybe a couple thousand people if you just had a tremendous voice, right? But that was it. And they all had to come and see you. They had to come and invest in that. So all of those pressures, they dictated how we were going to how human beings thought of communication. And then when it became television, it became visual. That then dictated what communication was. And we now think, when we talk, in our minds, we're on a TV show. We just are. And I know people want to say they aren't, but this is everybody. They're on a TV show. He's falling asleep.
Falling asleep.
He always falls asleep.
What is interesting to you, Nolan?
Bed. He wants to go to bed.
Was it a lot of work today or what?
6 flights of stairs I have to go up and down.
Oh, yeah.
So anyways, it just changed everything. And so it also became, then the message, any message, became a premium in time. So television time is extraordinarily expensive. Radio time was expensive. Television is outrageously expensive. And in the internet, it's even more expensive, even though it's a different kind of expense. It's not, I mean, anyone can publish something, but nobody will ever see it. Like, nobody's going to listen to this podcast.
Right.
4 or 5, maybe 10 people, 100 people, maybe it's nothing. Nobody. Yeah. To get people,
you'd have to buy in so we could
not
see
even
it.
that. You can't even buy it. It's expensive because it's priceless. For whatever reason, some messages, some podcasts, some shows, some websites, some blogs, whatever medium of internet is communicating, Twitter accounts, they get all the views. And it's not because they're necessarily buying it. Because, like CBS, NBC, they're buying all they can buy, and they can't beat Joe Rogan.
Right.
He's killing them, and he's not buying anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's just putting on content. For whatever reason, people like that content, and millions of people listen to him every single day. And that makes it extraordinarily expensive. If NBC, if Fox, if CNN, if they can't buy the viewers with all the money they can put up, and they can't beat him or other people like him who are, Instagram influencers or whoever it is in whatever medium, if the deepest pockets in television and mainstream media can't buy that kind of coverage, that means it's extraordinarily expensive. Expensive beyond being able to count.
That's really interesting when you
Yeah.
put it that way. Yeah.
Because we think of the internet as being a free medium,
Right.
but it's not.
No.
It's the most expensive thing we've ever come up with.
Right.
It just isn't in money. It's not something you can buy with money.
I thought you were going to say expensive as far as like equipment and stuff like that.
No, it's in all those ways is extraordinarily cheap. I mean, I have, I don't know, a couple $1,000s probably in the equipment that we're using right now. But you don't need it.
Right.
I mean, you can make if for whatever reason, and I don't know what it does that makes a podcast successful, but whatever that is, it's not stuff you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I buy this stuff because I'm a gear guy. I mean, I like stuff. I like technology. I like all the junk, and I like connecting it and trying to make it work. That's just what I like to do. But honestly, you could do it with one of these. This microphone right here that Nolan is sleeping in front of, that microphone right there is probably like $8. Talking to it, Nolan. Say something. Say I'm tired. Oh, it's not even on.
I'm tired.
Oh, get right up in there and talking to it.
I'm tired.
That's the way he, that's the
You
way
can't.
he talks.
Yeah, that's an $8 microphone, and this
good.
is like a $400 microphone,
Yeah.
and it does sound milk chocolatey, and his doesn't, right? His
Say
sounds
it.
like tap water.
Say milk chocolate in yours.
Milk chocolate.
It sounds like tap water.
Oh, yeah.
This one sounds like milk
It
chocolate.
sounds like San Antonio tap water.
Yes. Like
Because this tap water is not bad over here.
no, this is good.
Yeah,
I have
this
good
is
water
good.
here.
My water is
No, yeah, it's real bad.
it's terrible.
It's all the mind control elements, stuff. There's chemicals they put in it.
mind control.
Yeah, mind control.
Yeah, that's
They
the way
convince people to eat too much and get fat.
man.
It's not
That's
your
weird.
fault.
Yeah,
You've been victimized. You need to file a class action
it's
lawsuit.
no wonder I've been losing.
You
a
know,
lot
you
of
could
weight.
file a class action lawsuit
No.
just by yourself.
See, he wants to make fat jokes, but what he doesn't understand is that I've actually lost weight because I don't drink the
Well, you
water
couldn't
no
gain
more.
any more, so there's only one way for you to go.
Man, this is never gonna go live.
That
right?
was another fat joke. By the way.
Yeah. Well, if you have to explain the joke, it's not a good joke. So that's why he didn't explain it.
It's Terry says it's not a good joke if I have to laugh at my own jokes,
Yeah.
but I tell my jokes to myself.
Yeah, that's why you're always
Yeah,
laughing.
that's
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't matter if you're not. Yeah.
No,
so,
but
yeah,
so
that's
but see,
interesting,
all of these things, all these different ways of communicating have changed the way we communicate, and communication has become increasingly more and more expensive, which means we increasingly are trying to make it more and more efficient, because that's what higher prices, the kind of pressure higher price puts on any type of a labor, any type of an effort, is going to be to efficiency, right? So when something is cheap, you're inefficient. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're very inefficient. If gas is real cheap, you just get in your car and you drive somewhere and, that's not where I want to go. And you go. But if gas was like $5 or $6 a gallon, well, you want to do that. You would think, okay, I'm going to go, you're going to look at the map and say, I'm going to go here to the grocery store, and then I'm going to go to pick up my kids at school, and then I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to do it in an order in which I save the most gas. And you would just be more efficient in how you used it. The cheaper something is, the less efficient it becomes. And so communication has become so incredibly expensive that we have adapted to an idea that all messages must be efficient, attention getters, has to be, because of the cost of communication. And so the gospel, there's no way it wasn't going to happen. I'm not accusing anybody. This is just the reality, I think, of our life. And so the gospel is going to be ran through that machine, that efficiency calculator. It's going to get tabulated by that, and the gospel is going to be tried to be streamlined into this incredibly efficient, streamlined message. And there's something good to be said about that. It becomes a very communicable message where you can like bullet point it, and you can go like, there's 4 things God wants you to know, or there's 5 steps to eternal life, or there's whatever it is, and you can like step it out. And I'm not criticizing those messages. I'm really not. To me, they're unavoidable. It's unavoidable for us to go in that direction, given all these issues we've talked about. But I do find it to be inferior to the gospel message as it is in reality. And that is an incredibly robust, redundant, repetitious message that is so robust that I cannot myself calculate. I don't think it's possible to calculate how much error can be in the gospel and it still be effective.
People get saved still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like the inverse concept of poison. So how many drops of cyanide can you put into a 40-ounce glass of water and before it becomes deadly, right? Well, I'm sure there's a parts per million in which that's the case, right? And it's kind of like that. It's the inverse of that. It's like how much water can you put into the gospel and it still be sufficient?
Yeah, not diluted.
Not diluted. And it is an incredible amount that is possible. I don't know that you can actually answer that.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible.
It is. It's an amazing message.
Yeah.
It's an amazing message. And I think it's to all Christians' detriment when we become so
It's a formula base, right?
right. But that isn't what I say, but that is true. But what I was going to say is that when we become so zealous of purity, like the gospel has to be pure. So like people go out and they'll put on memes on Facebook that say like Calvinism. I'm not a Calvinist, but they'll go on and they'll say Calvinism is a false gospel. And if you believe in Calvinism, you haven't believed the scriptures. Or they'll say if you don't hear the gospel from the King James Bible, you've heard a false gospel. These are silly claims, completely silly claims. You can get saved from a gospel that is almost Jehovah's Witnessism. Maybe even that. I don't know. Like I'm telling you, I'm not, and this is not to say that it doesn't matter and that we shouldn't try to be accurate.
Right.
I'm not saying, well, just say it however it comes out. It doesn't matter. It matters, and yet I take great comfort as an evangelist that after I've done everything in my power to make the gospel clear, that it is actually so robust, it is so bulwarked, that it resists practically every conscious and unconscious attempt to dilute it. And it still comes through. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. When you're putting it like that, then yeah, I can just imagine how much inaccuracy I actually heard my whole life.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and still do. I
yeah,
mean,
I still do.
we still hear it. We still say
I
it.
probably even say it. Yeah, I
Of
was
course we
about to
do.
say. I even say
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely. I've been preaching for 30 some years, and I'm guarantee, I know for a fact that there's tremendous amounts of inaccuracy in how I present the gospel. And I don't just mean the words I say. I mean, you got to realize the gospel's everything. The gospel for you was your brother's life.
Yeah.
So it's everything. I mean, people say, well, I never say anything inaccuracy about that. Well, what about what you say with your works? Is that ever inaccurate?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Does that ever dilute the gospel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that in any way, dilute the message? Of course it does. And yet
Or
the
it
gospel
doesn't.
survives that.
Yeah, I was gonna say
People
or
will
it
get
doesn't.
saved not only in spite of a bad testimony, they'll get saved by listening to somebody that they know has a bad testimony, and they will still get saved.
Yeah,
I've known people who've been evangelized by somebody who they knew was not living what they were preaching, and yet the gospel still is potent enough to bleed through that. It's just, to me, it's just the most amazing message
well, I heard a
in the
story.
world.
I heard a story, actually from one of the brother from Mexico. That he wasn't he wasn't even a Christian. He was an atheist. And he was
Yes,
proselytizing.
one of the elders in Querétaro now.
Yeah. Oh, is that who it is?
Yes, yes. It's Stephen's father-in-law. It's Adi's dad.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's him.
Yeah, he would go.
That's
to the,
right. I remember him
he
now.
would go to the downtown evangelism and listen to me preach, and then talk to me afterwards. And he was never arguing really. He had questions. He was a seeker. He wasn't never argued with me, never debated. He wasn't there for that. He was atheist in that he couldn't believe in God,
Okay.
but he wanted to.
Mhm.
He just didn't know how, right? He didn't have faith. And so he would go and he'd ask me questions, and then he would go home. And then during the week, he had a friend in the neighborhood. He would tell him what I had told him. And his friend got saved
Before him.
quite a bit before him.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and next thing you know, he says that the guy comes up and his friend comes up and he's all happy. And he's like, hey, what are you so happy about? He's like, I got saved. Well, then he was like kind of upset
Yeah.
because he wanted to be saved. He really did. He wanted to believe very badly. But he's the kind of guy that's not going to fake it. He's not going to pretend to believe. He hates pretense.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted to believe, but he didn't know how.
Yeah.
He
that's
just didn't have the faith. He didn't have faith. And here's this guy who's been listening to the same stuff. He told it to him, and this guy gets saved, but he can't be saved. You imagine? This is what I'm talking about, the amazing. It's a great example you gave. This is how amazing, how penetrating, how robust
Yeah.
the gospel is as a message.
Yep.
And I think as Christians, we are not, many times, not everybody, but some of us, are not sufficiently amazed at
Yeah.
this message. It's an amazing message. There's a reason why it's called the good
Good
news,
news, yeah.
the God spell, the good message is what that would be from Old English. Gospel is from God spell,
Okay.
good spell, good message.
Okay. How does it say that in the Greek?
Evangelion.
Evangelion.
Yeah.
That's right. It kind of sounds like
Which is
like
good
Spanish.
news.
Yeah.
It's Spanish is right. So exactly right.
Almost the
Spanish
same
is
thing.
Evangelio is a transliteration. They just transliterate it. Whereas in English, they actually took good spell,
Okay.
God spell, gospel,
Gospel. Yeah.
and spell meant the message, the written word, the good word.
Okay.
That's where this is Old English, not the King James isn't Old English. King James is modern English.
Is it really?
Yes, it's not. I know a lot of people call it Old English, but it's not. It's not Old English. It's
I thought it was Old English because of the letters they used.
no. Now they used Gothic writing,
They
and
used
the
Gothic
original
writing,
was a Gothic alphabet. But no, Old English is like Chaucer.
I don't know who that is.
You do. You know who he is, but you know him not from literature. You'll know him from popular media. So A Knight's Tale, with the guy who played the Joker. What was the name of the actor who played the Joker? Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger.
Where he plays a knight. He
Yes.
pretends to be a knight.
That's right.
And it's kind of like a modern old. And his friend, the guy wandering around naked, the poet,
I think I remember this.
he's the guy that was in A Beautiful Mind, and he was the albino in Da Vinci Code, that actor.
Oh,
I don't ever remember his
I can't
name.
remember
He's
his-
also in the Avengers movies. He's the one who he's the Avenger who is
Yes, who
the
has
robot
a
or
stone. He
yeah,
has
he has
one of
like
the
he's
Infinity
like a
Stone.
drone or something or
He has the Infinity Stone.
some,
think,
I
yeah.
don't know anything.
I know
just
what you're talking
you know who
about.
I'm
Yeah.
that actor.
That's him.
He's in The Knight's Tale. He plays
I know who
Chaucer.
you're talking about now. Yes.
He's considered the father of English literature.
Oh wow. I did
Yeah,
not know that.
so he wrote Canterbury Tales.
Canterbury. This I've heard. What is that?
It's a book.
Yeah.
So it's considered the really the first English novel, and that was written in Old English.
Okay.
So if you get now you can get translations into modern English, which are like King James English. But you can also get the original, like on Gutenberg Press. You can get the original Old English version of it, and that's Old English.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
you get things like Godspell would be an Old English word
Okay.
that then became the gospel, and now we call it that. So English used a translation for Evangelion,
Evangelion.
and Spanish used a transliteration. They just took the Greek word
Something
and
like that.
Latinized the spelling,
Mhm.
which is what transliterate means. It's when you take a word from a different language and you put that sounding word into your alphabet, but you don't translate it.
Okay. Yeah. That I
Like
understand that.
baptism is a transliteration.
So that would be bautismo.
Baptismus. Yeah. That you take the Greek, transliterate it, which means you take the sounds of the Greek and you
Oh.
spell those sounds with your alphabet.
With your- oh,
But
okay.
you're not changing the word. You're just saying the Greek word in your alphabet.
That's okay.
So it's going to get pronounced different because we don't have the same sounds many
Right,
times.
right.
All right. And many times the letters in your alphabet can be pronounced differently and they end up being pronounced differently. So the words will change. But you can take the Greek New Testament, and if you learn to pronounce Greek, which isn't hard, you just learn the alphabet and learn because it's kind of like Spanish. The letters are always pronounced basically the same way. There's very
Really?
few letters that have more than one pronunciation. English is all over the map.
Yeah.
English has more, is one of the, I think it's the most or one of the most phenoms of any language. There's the most sounds that can be pronounced with the letters we have. So all of our letters are multi-use. Almost all of them. They can be pronounced in many different ways, depending on their context, what letters are next to them. That's why it's so hard to learn English.
I thought it would be like Russian or something.
No. Most languages are like Spanish. They have very few that they have the letters correspond to a sound,
Okay.
and very few letters have more than one sound. Now, there are other languages
Right.
like English, but not a lot. A lot of languages are very simple in that way. Like Spanish, there's one way to pronounce every letter almost. Couple letters will have a few exceptions, but you can learn
way.
Spanish in a couple days. What's that?
They mark those with like accents and stuff like that most of the time.
Right. Well, accented letters in a way you can think of as a different letter because it actually has marked as different.
Right.
You see what I mean? Whereas English, they don't mark it as
No,
different.
they
You just have to know it's
Yeah.
different.
So no wonder it's so easy to
Like
spell
S
in
and-
Spanish.
Huh? Oh,
It's
yeah.
easy to
Spanish is very easy to
it's
learn.
easy to-
Greek is the same way. So Greek, the only problem with Greek if Greek had been Latinized, right, you could learn Greek very easily, at least to read it and pronounce it. I mean, not read it like comprehension, but read it like pronounce it, because it's just what it is. The only thing that makes Greek a little more complicated for people, and they kind of steer from it or kind of don't recoil from it, don't want to get into it, is you have to learn a new alphabet.
Okay.
Right? They have their own way of writing these letters. They don't use the Latin alphabet.
Okay.
So that makes Greek a little bit harder. But once you learn the alphabet, it only takes, if you really put some effort in, it only takes like a week.
Really?
Yeah. And and if you sat down, you could do it in a couple of days. It's only 23 letters, I think, in the Greek alphabet.
Okay.
So you just learn how to pronounce those letters. And as soon as you learn how to pronounce the letters, then you can learn to train your mind to look at a word and pronounce it.
Oh, that's interesting. I
You
didn't know
start
that.
by doing it letter by letter,
Yeah.
but as you do it, then all of a sudden you can just look at it and you can just read Greek. Now you're not reading Greek in the way with comprehension,
Yes, like
because
you read
Greek has
English.
grammar, very
Right.
complex grammar rules, a lot of declension in the words. Declension means that every word, including nouns and everything, changes based on tense, on plural or singular, on gender.
I was
So
gonna
you
say
have the
gender.
nouns are genderized, the verbs are, everything is declension. So So English, the way we know what a word is in English and how it's used is in the order it's in. Subject, verb, object,
Right.
SVO. Subject, verb, object. That's English, that's Spanish, that's most. Those are non-declension languages.
Okay.
A declension language like Greek, you can put those words in any order. Doesn't matter. Because
Why?
if it's a subject, it's going to be spelled differently than if it's the object.
Oh, that's
So if the boy kicked the ball,
okay.
you can say ball kick boy, kick ball boy, kick boy ball. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Sounds-
really matter.
Okay.
You can write it out however you want, and you're going to know this is the one doing the kicking because of the way it's spelled, and this is what's being kicked because the way it's spelled. Doesn't matter what order it's in. So when you read Greek, I mean, I can't read it with comprehension because I don't know all these rules. I know the gist of it. I know some of them, but I don't nearly know enough to be able to like read a sentence and tell you this is what's happening in the sentence. No way.
Oh well.
Now, you can learn that. It's just learning grammar.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of applying yourself. And there's great resources on the internet to teach yourself these things. You don't have to be ignorant of them.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, that's very interesting. Where are we at?
On what
Time?
time?
What time is it?
Hour and 3. It's 10:26.
Oh.
10:26.
Well, this is good.
I'm glad that you
I
invited
have to
me.
get you back over here
So
and
I
talk
get.
again.
I bet that nobody had the steaks that we had today. Right?
No.
They're
But
missing
you're
out.
not getting the freeborn mug now. You had the steak.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No. What do you mean?
Well, you just said it was fine.
No. Hold on. I didn't hear what you said. Say it again, please.
Adjust your earphones so you can hear.
Yeah,
Adjust your
hold on.
headset there. Turn that up there. Boom. You got it?
'Cause I didn't.
I
turn
said
it.
you're not
I
getting
didn't
enough.
turn it because I knew you were gonna do something like that. I saw
You're not. I
your
said you're not
eyes.
getting it.
They're like, I'm about to
I
get his
got it,
ears
yeah.
and blow him up. Okay, now what were you gonna
I
say?
said you're not getting a freeborn mug because you already got the steak. You chose.